Well, good morning from Vancouver, everybody. Or good afternoon if you're in the middle of this continent, or good evening if you're overseas, or perhaps I guess it's good morning elsewhere as well. Welcome to the MPPGA program information session. I'm George Hoberg. I'm the graduate program director of this program, and I have the pleasure of teaching here for a while. To begin with, I want to start the way we do, opening things at the University of British Columbia, which is to acknowledge that our Vancouver campus is on the lands of the Musqueam First Nations people, the unceded ancestral and traditional lands. And we're very grateful to be able to live and work in these surroundings. The Masters of Public Policy and Global Affairs program is a professional program within the School of Public Policy and Global Affairs at the University of British Columbia. And UBC is a global center for research, innovation, and teaching, and we are consistently ranked among the top 40 best universities in the world. Not only is UBC a top university, but it's also located in one of the most beautiful and livable cities in the world, Vancouver. Our program is located at the Point Grey UBC campus. During the next hour, we'll be sharing about who we are, how we build future policy change makers for the world, and how you can become an MPPGA student. We will also be answering questions throughout the information session, so please don't hesitate to ask. For those online, please share where you're from and ask your questions in the comment box. Now I'll turn it over to Julia Park, our graduate program manager.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties today. I'm not able to pull up any of my screens while I'm sharing my PowerPoint. So I am supposed to have some notes, but we are a full-time professional global public policy program, and my name is Julia Park. I'm a program manager of the program, and my job is to help our students receive the best academic advice they need to succeed in their program and help run a variety of projects that equip our students to be the best policymakers that they can be. I'm joined here today by one of our alumni, Kieran. Hi, Kieran.
Hi, Julia. Hello, everyone.
Thanks so much for your time today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're currently doing?
Sure. So my name is Kieran Alwani. I was in the first cohort of UBC's MPPGA program, graduated in 2017, and currently I work at the Office of Energy Efficiency at Natural Resources Canada as a policy analyst, where I work on international and domestic engagement with the strategic partnerships team.
That's wonderful. So we're going to hear a little bit more about Kieran's journey today during this session. We also have a variety of great questions we've already received, but you're very welcome to continue putting your questions into the chat as well as the Q&A function here in Zoom. So a little bit more about our program. Recently, we've created a new accelerated version of our regular 20-month program. This means that the accelerated option will give students the opportunity to finish one term early. So it'll just be a 16-month process. Our faculty are very interdisciplinary. They're actively engaged with communities on matters such as climate change, sustainable energy, Asia-Pacific policy, coming out of our current geographic location as a Asia-Pacific gateway, in our proximity to the IAR and the Asian Studies cluster here at UBC. We also have a great emphasis on Indigenous policy. So one of our policy fellows are Jessica Wood, a very influential Indigenous policymaker here locally in BC. We are full of energy policy specialists, including our very own grad director, George, and studies of democracy and resource governance. So you may have noticed in some of our webbed content that our program offers students 3 different streams. We have stream 1, development and social change. Stream 2 is resources, energy, and sustainability. Stream 3 is global governance and security. So you'll have a chance to indicate which stream you have an interest in during the first part of your application, but you'll definitely have an opportunity to explore throughout your first year so that you can make your final choice near the end of your first year experience. To speak a little bit more about the MPPGA accelerated option, you'll see the timeline that we've laid out for option 1, which is a regular program. Term 1, year 1, and term 2, year 1 are full of core courses that will be designed to give you some core skills in becoming a general policymaker. And these core skills will give you the foundation to do some more specialized work that targets your career goals, whether you want to be a sustainability policy analyst, whether you want to be someone who's researching the intersections between tech and policy, whether you want to go into something that's more regional, such as US-China relations. The core courses will be taken by your entire cohort to make sure that everyone has the same solid foundation. And then you'll see in the summer is when we become a little different between the accelerated option and the regular option. And term 1 and 2 in your year 2 will comprise of a variety of exciting opportunities, including the GP squared, which we'll be happy to talk about later on today. All right, so I see that Tina, are you sharing the PowerPoint from your end? I think so.
Yep, just so you can access your notes.
Thank you so much, Tina. That's great. And I can see everyone's chat right now. I'm just going to call you out. Nathan from Montreal, welcome. Elizabeth from Kenya, currently in Ohio. Hi, welcome. Claudia from Vancouver. We have a local person logging in. Raj from Surrey, hello. Serena from Calgary. We have so many people from Brampton. That's fantastic. Asa from Ghana, hello. It's great to see everyone globally. We have so many people joining us today. I'm really happy to see you all. We have another Julia from Germany, currently in the Netherlands. That's wonderful. And we have Undram from Mongolia. This is fabulous. This is one of our favorite parts of meeting everyone and engaging in the program, the global nature of our cohorts. We usually have a 40 to 60 balance between international and domestic students every year. And the different perspectives that each cohort brings to the table just really adds to the learning outcomes of our program. So you'll see here in this slide some overview of what we do in your year 1 as well as your year 2. And just as I've mentioned, year 1 is built on creating some foundational skills as a policymaker, and year 2 is built on some more specific journeys of where you want to go in your career. So you'll have that space to take 5 elective stream courses that directly correspond to your stream selection, whether that's development and social change, or resources, energy, and sustainability, or global governance and security, or your own personalized option, which you can definitely discuss with your grad director and your faculty members. All right, so you may have seen some reference to something that looks like this, GP2. We call this GP squared, or the Global Policy Project. And the Global Policy Project is a 6-credit course. So it registers in your transcript as an actual gradable course, but it also doubles as a wonderful professional development opportunity. During their GP squared project, students will work with real-life clients that we've gathered for you to solve current policy challenges. So you'll be put into a team, whether that's a domestic team or an international team, and you'll work with this client to solve a policy challenge that they give to you and your team to really propose a great policy solution. And that will build part of your portfolio as a real life experience where you've done policy work, consulting with clients, and coming up with great solutions. You'll see here examples of previous projects and photos that our students have taken while they were on fieldwork and meeting with their clients. So you see unraveling definitions of sexual violence through a survivor-centered approach in New York, Geneva, in Switzerland, and The Hague. That happened last year. One of my colleagues, Carrie Ross, followed this team during their field work, and that was a really great experience for students to travel to different cities and to meet with stakeholders to pull up their reports and conduct their research. Now, I want to turn to Kiran, our alumni. What kind of GP squared experience did you go through, and what was it like for you?
So for my GP squared, I worked with TLFF, which is the Tropical Landscapes Finance Facility. It was a green finance mechanism which had been launched recently when we started working on it in Indonesia by the United Nations Environment Program and the World Agroforestry Center. And as part of our global policy project team, we conducted an environmental, social, political, and organizational risk assessment for the client to identify areas of focus for the organization and to provide recommendations to them. And so during the project, we identified gender as a cross-cutting theme and decided to advise on gender mainstreaming as well. So during this process, our team visited Indonesia as well to conduct interviews with different stakeholders and to conduct focus groups with smallholders as well. And our final deliverable was a report which provided recommendations on how to increase the environmental, gender, and social impact of different projects that TLFF engages in, as well as create a preliminary framework for implementation, monitoring, and evaluation.
That sounds really amazing. Thank you so much for telling us about that experience, Kiran. How do you feel that this experience helped you or supported you in any way in doing further policy work?
So I think this experience was really instrumental in for us as a team in developing several skills that have been useful since as policy analysts. So, so to provide a few examples, we developed strong research skills, doing a lot of reading on the subjects that we were exploring. As well, we had the opportunity to talk to a lot of different stakeholders, interview them. So building those people skills as well. And I think another really useful skill was to work well in a team and how to divide up work and yeah, be a good team member and support your team members.
It's so great that you mentioned that because we had, I think, someone from Ottawa come by and talk about the most mentioned skills or desired skills currently in government and in government organizations. And her responses surprised me. It was things like creativity and soft skills like teamwork. And I think you really can't understate the importance of knowing how to work with people who are different from you when you approach work in policy. So that's great. We have a spot question. Good morning from Vancouver. I'm just wondering if there is just one destination of GP squared 1 year or there are choices for students. Yeah, thanks for that question, Liu Jin Tao. So basically every year as you cross into your second year, we send out a survey full of possible options of different projects that students can work on. And these are a great variety of projects, usually going beyond 10 different options. And students get to let us know by a survey on which projects really, shout out to them, the projects that they want to work on. And then students are divvied up into these different teams and these different project options based on their survey responses. So the response would be there are many destinations and many different projects for GP squared, and students do get to have a say on their preferred projects to work on. Now this current slide is full of different photos. All of these photos were taken directly by myself. I followed our team that was working with the Canadian Canada ASEAN Business Council, the CABC, which is an organization created by the federal government to look at options for business exchange between Canada and the ASEAN regions. So I had a chance to follow our team going to Singapore. This team later went on to 2 different cities to meet with business owners and stakeholders and government officials on the possibility of how different visa options could support business exchange between these different countries. These 2 other photos, this photo of these lovely children and the one here on the bottom right-hand side, was when I followed our team working with Open Learning Exchange, which was a nonprofit in Nepal. Our students came here to Nepal in Kathmandu and Sindhu Palchak to research different efficacy options for teaching training, teacher training here in the Nepal region. So both of those projects were really amazing. And the students got to have a firsthand experience meeting with people in different regions, enmeshed in different policy environments to talk and think of different options to come up with their solution. And Manu Srimriti can recognize a lady in the picture taken in Nepal. That's amazing. What a small world. Thank you. All right, so we'll go over to the next slide now. And I will turn it over to George to talk a little bit more about more of our professional development options.
Yeah, professional development really is something that we take very seriously here in the MPPGA program. It's one of the real strengths of what we have to offer. And we do it through a variety of ways. One is a series of workshops that are organized by the program on things like job search skills, social media strategy, working in teams, public speaking, intercultural fluency, things like that. We also conduct a large number of events through the school. We're very active at promoting those, some of them directly related to student professional development, including things like Women in Politics. The Road to Equal Representation is one that we had last year. We've also had discussions of a national plastics pollution strategy for Canada. It was exciting to know that our environment minister here in Canada just announced the banning of single-use plastics this morning. So it's a big policy development here, and we like to keep plugged into those things. We help students go to conferences that are relevant to their program here. We also participate in a case competition, which is done with other Canadian policy schools. It's a fun time where we send a team that we select based on an internal competition to go and essentially debate a policy scenario with other teams from across Canada. We have a mentorship program. In the first year, students are given a faculty mentor. In the second year, the mentorship becomes more professional. And so we try to find professional mentors for people who are already out working in the field to provide that mentorship for students. And finally, we also do some career advising. We have a staff member whose job it is to help identify career paths, the necessary steps you would need to take to achieve those goals, expertise in job search with advice on networking and information interviews, and providing feedback and advice on their resumes, things like cover letters and interview skills. So that's very important in helping you prepare to launch yourself in your post-MPPGA career. So we can go to the next slide. So the other key piece of this really is the CoOp program that we run. And this is done mostly during the summer between year 1 and year 2, but there are options to do it in the first term of your second year as well. And it's an extremely enriching opportunity where students have gotten to work with places like federal departments for the Government of Canada, including Global Affairs Canada, the Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada, Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs. So we've also had people go to work for different provincial governments, including the government of British Columbia, across the Georgia straight from us here in Vancouver in the city of Victoria in places like the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. Some of our students get co-ops at municipal governments. We've had them work for the city of Richmond, which is just south of Vancouver, and the city of Surrey, which is a little bit farther south than that. Large active international consulting firms like Hemera. We've also had students get jobs with those co-op jobs with big corporations like Goldcorp, a mining corporation based here in Vancouver. You can see some of their job titles there, a variety of things. We've also got connections through a British Columbia-based organization with different professional consultants in UN agencies around the world. And so that's another really great opportunity for those who have a global focus and an interest in the UN. So that's our co-op program. It's a real, very important feature of what we're doing here. So I will turn it back over to Julia.
Thank you, George. So I've just been trying to answer a few questions in the Q&A, which we've been trying to do between me and George as we continue this presentation. Now, I've included this opportunity to check out further alumni outcomes at sppga.ubc.ca/news. And when you go on this page, you have a chance to go onto the option here and indicate alumni news, and you will have all the results depicting our features on alumni and their career outcomes. So for those of you who have been asking about common career outcomes, as well as where our alumni end up, please do see these articles here, and you'll be able to see a wide variety of stories. But in the meantime, I do want to ask live the alumni who is here with us today. Kieran, how would you say your professional development experience in the program helped you prepare for your post-graduation job search?
So during the program, we had a number of opportunities to develop, as I said, key skills that you need as a policy professional. Since we were just talking about co-op, I will talk a little bit about my co-op experience. For my co-op, I worked as a researcher at the Conference Board of Canada in their public policy division with the Northern and Aboriginal policy team. So that job really gave me the opportunity to learn about Indigenous issues and to work on a research project on Indigenous-centered early childhood education programs in Canada. And I also had a chance to write a series of blogs that was published on the Conference Board website, as well as learn how to respond to some of the government RFPs. Apart from the co-op program, there were several other opportunities as well. So while I was in the MPPGA program, I also did a research fellowship with the Asia Pacific Foundation of Canada, where I got to work on their national opinion polls and also develop my knowledge of Asia Pacific policy. There are opportunities to get experience within the UBC community as well. So there were, I know, several work-learn jobs, and I did one of those as well during the first year of my program. You were talking about CABC, and I also had the opportunity to work with some of my peers, with one of our professors on two projects with the Canada ASEAN Business Council. One was a survey research project on Canadian businesses in Southeast Asia, and then a follow-up project to see the potential impact of a Canada-ASEAN free trade agreement. So these are just some of the things that I did at the MPPGA program that complemented the academic experience. And I should say that I did not talk a lot about the courses, but I think the courses were also extremely helpful in developing those key research and writing skills that are really useful as a policy professional.
Thanks for that insight, Kieran. Would you say that you had like a specific career goal coming into the program, or did you find your career goals changing or altering depending on some of these experiences that you had?
I think a bit of both. So going into the program, I knew that I was interested in public policy, and I'm originally from Pakistan, so I knew that I wanted a program that included some international components as well to learn about international public policy, but I'm a Canadian as well, so I wanted a mix of both Canadian, domestic and international elements, and I chose the MPPGA program because it provided the right balance for me. And so I didn't know exactly what I would do after the program, and I have tried a couple of different things. So after I graduated from the MPPGA program, I initially worked at a think tank, the Mowat Center, which was based at the Monk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy at the University of Toronto, where I got to work on various different projects with the provincial government, with several municipal governments and private sector clients as well. And then I decided to move on to the federal government to get that insider policy analyst perspective, working within the government as well. So I would say I'm still exploring. There are a range of policy areas that I'm interested in. So I think the benefit of being in the MPPGA program was to have those skills as a generalist to be able to fit into different types of roles.
Thank you for that great answer. We'll still have Kiran for a little bit more of a Q&A session, and we'll talk a little bit more about our alumni later on. But for now, I will talk a little bit about our admission requirements. This is also an area that we've been questioned on quite a bit. You'll see here on the right-hand side a graphic that our team, Lindsay and Tina's team, has put together, and it's the student academic background. This is a really common question that we receive. Is it okay if I come from a totally unrelated undergraduate background when coming into this policy degree? And our answer is yes, absolutely. We love receiving people from different backgrounds as long as you have a clear reason on why policy is a bridge between this prior skill set into your future goals. So we see here, let's see, we have poli-sci, arts and social sciences, economics is definitely some of the leading undergrad courses that people come in with, but we also have business, we have science, we have a lot of science backgrounds here, we have a lot of environmental studies, which speaks to our specialty in green policy and researching energy policy and sustainability as part of our work. Tina has just mentioned that there are many others. Yes, we definitely have people with legal backgrounds join us. So it's always a great pleasure to see people from a variety of different academic backgrounds as well as different cultural backgrounds. So applications are now open. You are very welcome to begin applying for this program. The deadline to apply is January 21st. So make sure to do so soon. That said, we do not look at any applications before the end of the deadline. So it is not a first come, first served situation. Please do take your time until January 21st, 2021 to make sure that your application is as strong as it can be. We do ask for a minimum grade point average of 76%. So I know that around the world, there are many different ways of grading, many different ways that transcripts are pulled together. So please don't be worried. We have a system of translating all of these different grading systems into our own. We just ask that once it is translated into our own grade average system, it must be at least 76%. We also do ask for English language test scores. So for those of you who are coming from an educational environment where English is not the first language, we require a TOEFL or an IELTS with these minimum scores. For Canadian and US institutions, the GPA is calculated using only upper level courses, so 300 and 400 level courses. But for international institutions, we will calculate the GPA using all of the transcript grades. However, we still encourage you to apply even if you feel like you don't meet the minimum requirement. And the reason we say that is because we take the whole application into consideration. So make sure that you have a really good reason for applying and that you elucidate this really well in your essay response. There are many opportunities for you to represent who you are and to convey to the admissions committee your purpose and your motivation for joining this program with what kind of skill set that you've already compiled. Lots of questions about reference letters. Again, this is sort of up to you. Make sure that you reach out to people who know you well. And we have sort of a good background of how you should understand you should be reaching out to professors or professional contacts in the website, sppga.ubc.ca. When you click on graduate program, there is an option to go into admissions requirements, and then there will be some sort of a guideline. If you have been 2 to 5 years out of school, you should have 2 letters from professors, 1 letter from a professional contact, etc. So you can definitely consult that information when you make your decisions. All right. So now we will quickly go on to alumni again, as promised. Our MPPGA alumni have found positions as policy analysts, of course, but also public management consultants, senior specialists, China associate. In this case, the student said that this was their dream job, so they were super happy with this opportunity. We also had someone go the corporate route, so they were hired as a senior specialist at the Newmont Gold Corporation. Many people working in environmental policy and environment consultation. And we have someone as a senior communications and engagement lead with TransLink, which is our public transit providing body here in BC. So again, Kieran, you told us a little bit about your journey after the MPPGA. What would you want to tell these prospective students about in terms of your experience and any advice that you would want to leave them?
So I think in terms of finding a job after the MPPGA, as we can see from the list, there are a diversity of options that you can look at. So it really depends on what you're interested in, what type of policy you're interested in, whether you're interested in working with the government directly or with other policy organizations. So for me, personally, I immediately after the program, I was applying for policy jobs because I was interested in research and analysis work. I decided to start working at a think tank at the University of Toronto, which was funded by the province of Ontario. So during that job, I got the opportunity to work with different ministries across the province of Ontario on projects such as community benefits agreements for infrastructure projects, with the Ministry of Finance on looking at new financial tools for the new economy, with the municipality as well, to see how what policy options they should be looking at to be more sustainable going forward, as well as with organizations such as the Canadian Standards Association, where I got to do research work on the sharing economy and look at international standards and talk to people from different countries across the world to develop an implementation tool for policymakers. So this was a diversity of options, and then I realized that I wanted to look at more public service jobs in order to get that internal government. I applied to some jobs in ministries that I was interested in working at, and eventually ended up here in my current job, which is at the Office of Energy Efficiency at Natural Resources Canada, working in international policy. And so my advice to alumni would be to to basically be clear about what are some of the areas that they're interested in working on, but not to limit themselves too much. I should mention as well that if you are interested in working for the Canadian federal government, that you cannot apply for most policy jobs if you're not a Canadian citizen. And this is something I think is important to mention because during my MPPGA CoOp program as well, I was a permanent resident at that time and not a citizen. I wasn't eligible for any of those federal government jobs. So I know it comes as a disappointment to a lot of people if you don't know that fact in advance. But having said that, I think there are a range of options that that you can look at, and the program is really supportive as well in sharing those job opportunities and helping with career development.
Great, thank you so much, Kiran. Now we're going to go directly into questions and answers. And again, thank you so much to all of you for all of the great many questions you've submitted already, as well as through the Q&A box right now. I'm just going to go through our questions that came in prior to the session and see if we can answer as many as we can after going into the chat and the Q&A box. So first of all, we have a question: how much emphasis on climate and energy policy does the program have? George, do you feel like you'd be able to speak a little bit on this?
Sure. It's what I do, and it's what several other professors do. Milind Kandahar, who's appointed with us, and some others. It's basically, it's the cornerstone of that second stream on resources and sustainability. So it is quite a significant focus. I think more so during that second year of stream selection. There have been times when we've actually been able to get GP squared projects directly focused on climate and energy issues as well. I was able to supervise a project on BC's policies towards liquefied natural gas in terms of exporting it to China 2 years ago. And last year, I supervised a project applying an equity lens to Vancouver's climate action plan. So both of those were extremely enriching projects for students.
Thank you, George. Now, this is a very important tip for anyone looking into grad school, but make sure to go into our website and look at the faculty and their specializations. That's all laid out in their bios in the sppga.ubc.ca website. If you go to people, you can go to faculty and faculty associates and look at the kind of research they're looking into in what they specialize in. Another question, this is quite a common question throughout the info sessions. Would you recommend the GRE for this program? No. As a Canadian institution and a Canadian grad school, we don't really look at the GRE for application packages and assessing our students. So please don't feel like you need to take the GRE or the GMAT in any way. And what qualities do you look for in an ideal student? Well, we can definitely rattle off our wish list, but the best and clearest idea you can get of the kind of student we're looking for is, again, if you go to our website, go under graduate program and look at admission requirements, and you'll be able to see what we ask of you. And if you follow those instructions and appeal yourself in a genuine way, I think you'll be putting your best foot forward. So another kind of question that we tend to receive very often is whether the scholarship options that are involved in the program and whether UBC offers full scholarships for international students. So the scholarship options vary very differently depending on the program. But for us, we do not offer full scholarships on behalf of the program. All of our fully funded students come from externally funded scholarships or fellowships. The best option, I would say, in terms of your financial planning is make sure that you have many entry points in terms of funding. So those could include merit-based entry-level scholarships given by the program. Those could include different external scholarships that are mentioned in the grad and postdoctoral studies website at UBC. Those could also include any scholarships that are offered in your country or between your country and Canada. And those could also include financial aid offered by your country or wherever else available. So it would have to be a mix of a lot of different options in terms of financial planning and opportunities. What I really recommend is embark on this search and this journey as soon as you possibly can, and make sure that you are ready to take on the full fee of tuition, because once you begin the program, it's going to be a very overwhelming time. I do not recommend looking into financial options around the time you're accepting an offer or beginning the program itself. It's going to have to begin much earlier than that. Another thing that I really want to emphasize is that no one in our program team specializes in scholarships. There isn't a person at the university that will look into scholarship options for you and lay them out in a way that applies to you directly. There are so many different funding bodies and different scholarships available for people to look into, but that research is going to have to come from you in a way that applies to your status, whether that appeals to your visa status, your citizenship status, your income level, your background, or your previous career. All of these different factors that affect eligibility for a different scholarship or funding body will differ greatly. And so you'll have to do a lot of independent research into that. Also, another reminder is that any external scholarships, so any scholarships that are not merit-based funding opportunities that come from our program, are judged by different bodies. So even if it is a scholarship within UBC, if it is not administered by our program, we cannot speak to the kind of applicant they are looking for or the kind of application that they want. So you would have to communicate directly with the awards coordinator or the awards team that is administering that degree in order to figure out the answers to all of those questions, okay? Now, another good but challenging question, how will COVID-19 affect admission requirements and the admission process? That's a really good question. So this incoming year, we had a lot of challenge receiving transcripts and reference letters. We are currently working with the Grad and Postdoctoral Studies Office to make sure that we have a way of collecting physical letters or transcripts. And if there are any changes to this process, you will definitely be made aware. But for the time being, we believe that everything you would need to know is clearly outlined in the process of the application and the messages you receive from the university once you apply. So make sure to be checking your email and to read all of the instructions as part of the application form. So another important question, would the MPPGA have special arrangements or considerations towards students with special educational needs, for example, those of the hearing impaired? Absolutely. We definitely judge all applications fairly, but once students are accepted into the program, we provide all possible resources to help the students have a great academic experience in a way that does not affect their experience. If they have any learning disabilities or if they have any impairments. So we have a Center for Accessibility. Usually when a person has a medical condition or a situation that gives them priority in terms of some special considerations, we send them to a body in the university, a department called the Center for Accessibility, and the student will be set up with an accessibility advisor. And the advisor will be the specialist in terms of providing special exams or special notes or different tools or options for students who are requiring some kind of extra consideration in that way. And then the accessibility advisor will be working directly with your faculty members and myself to make sure that this experience is coherent throughout your degree. All right, now why don't we go over to the Q&A board right now. I'll try to look at some questions that have come in to the Q&A. All right, so this is another question that comes in fairly often. A question about the recommended prerequisites like econ and stats, and to take them through Coursera. By taking these quantitative courses within the university as a 3-credit course, does that give you a competitive advantage, or does it not change things much to take them through Coursera? That's a pretty good question. Thank you, Kate. So I'll turn it over to George. From your perspective, do you think it's better for a student to take a quantitative course like econ and stats through a university, or completing it through a Coursera course?
It's better to take it through a university. But if you haven't done that during your program, it makes sense to do the Coursera one before or immediately after you apply.
Thank you, George. And I do want to emphasize that quantitative skills are fairly important. It is not fully required for students to come in with like this great knowledge of quantitative skills and analysis. But once you are accepted into the program, we do expect everyone to have at least an elementary knowledge of the basics in order to jump into those courses in macroeconomics and microeconomics and statistics for success. A question from Houston. Are there specific resources available for those interested in specializing in non-Asia Pacific areas, such as MENA? That's a good question. I would definitely want to say that we have students who have focused their research on areas outside of North America or the Asia Pacific. George, can you recall any instances of students who worked with different regions or specialized in an interest of regions outside of Asia or North America?
Sure, we've had projects through the Global Policy Project in both Africa, in Tanzania, Ethiopia, Kenya, and Latin America, where we've had projects in Peru. I'm trying to think whether we've had any other Latin American projects, but I know we've had several in Peru. So we have more strength in Asia than in other regions outside of North America, but we still have a lot of interest in the planet Earth and all of the problems about global public policy that emerge from them all around the world. So we end up with projects all over the place.
Thank you, George. And we have a question from Felix. What is the average age and level of work experience of the MPPGA students? So far, we have had an average of, I think, people in their late 20s, I believe, and at least 2 years of work experience. With the new accelerated program, we are expecting students who may be older with some more work experience. And I also remember that we had a question come in with someone saying that they were 45 years old or had lots of years of work experience, and whether that still made them eligible for the program. Absolutely. We do not practice ageism here in this department, and we welcome anyone from any walk of life, as long as you are passionate about learning about policy and you feel that this program will offer you the experiences that you would like in the career goals that you have. And then we have a question from Undram from Mongolia, I believe. Can a graduate student take any course from other departments upon permission from the dean or school? Are classes restricted to a certain major? That's a good question. The answer would be every MPPGA student is entitled to take one course outside of the PPGA course code. So you're welcome to take one full semester long course in any faculty or department outside of our public policy stream or offering of classes, as long as it relates to the work that you're doing as part of your focus and in your policy studies. And in order to do that, you'll have to speak to the grad director to make sure that this is in line with what we consider relevant to your academic experience. A simple question from Gloria. Will this recording be sent to all of the attendees? Yes, we will be providing a recording of this session There may be a little bit of a delay in between, so please, we ask for your patience for the next week or so as we process this long video and make it ready for us to pass it on for you to see again. So we've had a few questions about co-op. How easy is it to get a co-op position? What's the process of applying to co-op? What are the chances of getting into co-op? And what are co-op opportunities for international students? My recommendation would be to sign up with our info session with our career and co-op manager, Carrie Ross. Carrie is our colleague, and she is the person who really manages the professional development portfolio for all of our students. She would be the best person to answer all of these questions relating to co-op. And I would defer to her in terms of the most updated content in terms of career opportunities and co-op positions given this current global situation. So we have another question from Dylan. How many students are accepted into the program each year? Is the program cohort-based or more independent in nature? Not quite sure what the second part of that question might mean, but I can try to answer as much as possible. We usually accept around 60 students every year, and we end up with a cohort of around 40 and 40 to 45. And so we are a really great intimate kind of cohort, and the cohort is able to really build some networks and their own relationships throughout that first year, because you are all required to partake the same course at the same time. And then in the second year, people sort of break up into their own journeys and into their stream work. Hope that answers your question. Oh, great. Yeah, it answered their question. That's great. I'm trying to look through all of these questions. There are so many. I'm trying to make sure that we find questions that are not already answered in the websites or have not been answered in the presentation. Oh, we have a question for Kiran. So an anonymous attendee is asking Kiran, did you have previous policy experience before this project or before this program, I think? Or would you say this program was solely what got you the work experience to land the roles you have had since?
So I did have a few years of work experience before joining the program. But I would not say that was actual policy experience, but it was somewhat related. So just before the program, I was working at the Institute for Canadian Citizenship in Toronto, where I worked on public engagement, development, and communications. So that did provide a base for me to be able to engage with the public and develop good writing skills, and also learn about Canadian citizenship and immigration policy. Before that, I had also worked with some international development organizations. So I had worked with Youth Challenge International, as well as a fellowship with Teach for Pakistan. So I did have some of those experiences, but the program did provide a really great base to take it forward, to develop those research and writing and team building skills. And as I mentioned, there were several opportunities to gain work experience for me during the program as well, including the co-op position at Conference Board, the fellowship at the Asia Pacific Foundation, the Global Policy Project, as well as some projects that I worked on with a professor with the Canada ASEAN Business Council. So that created a really solid policy base to be able to look for those actual policy jobs when I was out of the program.
Thanks for that answer, Kiran. And I see another question for you. Another anonymous attendee says, did you apply immediately after your undergrad degree?
No, so I think I just briefly answered that. I did have a few years of work experience. So I would say I worked for about 3 years before joining the MPPGA program. But looking at our cohort, we had a diverse range of students. So we had someone with 10 years of working experience in the UN before that person joined the program, but we also had a few students who were directly out of undergrad. So it was a good mix of students, but I would say most students had about 2 to 4 years of work experience.
Thank you, Kiran. And I would say your experience sort of is the ideal background that we want students to come in with. For people coming directly from undergrad, it is possible, but I would say the more common case is when students come in with at least 2 years of work experience. We have a simple question, but an important question from Raja Lakshmi. When will we know the results of the admission results? That would be around March or so, when you receive some word, the status of your application. We have a question from Soham. Thank you so much for doing the session. You're very welcome. Is it possible to do a one-on-one meeting with an admissions recruiter? I would say it is definitely possible to book a time with me. There is a Calendly link that will allow you to book a time with me for a 15-minute advising session. Or if I'm not available, you will be able to meet with a member of our program team to talk a little bit about the questions you may have. So I'll drop that link in the chat later on. We have another question. Who is the professor? I want to learn about their research. I assume that's talking about you, George. George, where can students learn a little bit about the research you've done?
So that's a good question. And as Julia mentioned before, we spend a lot of time updating our websites and our profile on the website. So in the chat stream, you can find a link that Lindsay Marsh posted to the core faculty within the School of Public Policy and Global Affairs. And it provides a lot of detail about the background of the professor in terms of their own disciplinary background, as well as their research interests and some recent publications, as well as commentary in the news. For me, I'm a political scientist, and I've been at UBC now for 34 years. I started in the political science department, but after a while I moved over to the Faculty of Forestry, and since 2016 I've been here at the School of Public Policy and Global Affairs. And the focus of my research generally is about environmental controversies. Lately I've been focusing on energy and climate policy controversies. And my most recent product is a book about some big conflicts over pipelines, offshore wind projects, and other types of new infrastructure projects, and trying to figure out what kind of processes we can put in place to generate more social acceptance of necessary infrastructure projects. So that's the sort of stuff that I do, but other profs have a very diverse range of skills, and you can see all of their interests on the website. And really, just in terms of doing your own due diligence and looking at any program, it's the first place you should go when trying to figure out whether or not you want to go to a program. Look at who the professors are and what their interests are. They're the ones that you're going to be spending time learning from. So that's a really good resource for you.
Thank you, George. So I noticed that we're right on time, right at time. Thank you so much for all of the great questions you had for us today. I noticed that there are still many questions that may be going unanswered for some of our attendees today. Please do feel welcome to sign up for more of our info sessions. In the future, we will be focusing more on some specific topics. Just as I mentioned, we will be having a focus session on career opportunities and professional development opportunities, including all questions about co-ops and internships with Carrie Ross, our career manager. We will also be going forward with questions and answers specifically targeting international applicants and your experience as an international student throughout this current global situation. So we will be joined by a UBC International Student Advisor for this session. So please do stay connected. We will be emailing you with the recording of this session. And for those of you who have any specific or complex question, please do contact me at calendly.com/julia-park-SPPGA and schedule 15 minutes of time through the prospective student meeting option. So thank you everyone for joining me, George and Kieran today. And it was really great meeting you from all over the world. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.